I found her secret GPS history leading to a cemetery every night at midnight. It sounds like the start of some cheap thriller, right? Like something you'd see in a grainy Lifetime movie where the cheated-on spouse ends up wrestling a shovel in the moonlight. But this is real, and it's my life. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm the hero, the villain, or just a pawn in some messed up game. Before we dive too deep into this whole situation, if you're finding yourself drawn into this story, this raw, messed up confession, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it helps me keep putting these stories out there, these windows into lives that are probably a lot messier than people let on. And if you feel it, a like and a share would be amazing. Plus, leave a comment. I read them all. Your thoughts, your theories, your own experiences, it all matters. It makes me feel less alone in this, you know? Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the cemetery. My name, for the purposes of this recording, doesn't really matter. Let's just say I'm a guy who thought he had it all figured out. Mark, maybe. Yeah, Mark. Sounds solid. And Sarah, that was my wife. My life. We'd been together for, 10 years. Married for 6. Built a life in this sprawling suburb outside of Denver. Nice house, decent jobs, weekend barbecues, the whole American dream package. She was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, funny, gorgeous in that effortless way that made other women seem like they were trying too hard. We had this easy rhythm, this comfortable silence that spoke volumes. We knew each other's coffee orders, the way we liked our toast, the little things that make up a marriage. Or what I thought was a marriage. The suspicions started small. You know how it is. A late text message she'd quickly close when I walked into the room. A sudden preoccupation with her phone. A guardedness that hadn't been there before. I'm not a jealous guy. At least I never thought I was. Sarah was my world, and the idea of her looking elsewhere never even crossed my mind. We were a team. We navigated the mortgage, the PTA meetings for our non-existent kids. We always planned on them, but life, you know? The leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom. We were good. So when these little cracks started appearing, I had brushed them off. Stress, work, whatever. Then came the phone. Her old iPhone, actually. She'd upgraded, and this one was just sitting on her nightstand, collecting dust. One afternoon, while tidying up, I picked it up. Muscle memory, I guess. I knew her passcode. We weren't secrets, or I thought we weren't. I wasn't snooping, not really, just absent-mindedly scrolling. And then I saw it, the location history. Usually it was a blur of work, home, the grocery store, the gym, mundane, predictable. But then, there it was, a series of pins every single night for the past 3 months. Every night, around midnight. The location? The old Willow Creek Cemetery.
My heart did this weird lurching thing, like a skipped beat and a punch in the gut all at once. A cemetery? Sarah? What the hell was going on? My first thought, stupidly, was that she was visiting a relative's grave. But why every night? And why the secrecy? She never mentioned it, not once. We'd talk about our days, the big and small things, and this monumental nightly pilgrimage was never a topic of conversation. That's when the paranoia really started to creep in. It was like a cold, damp hand squeezing my chest. I started paying closer attention. The way she'd excuse herself from bed, murmuring about needing water, only to be gone for 20, 30 minutes. The faint scent of cheap floral perfume that sometimes clung to her when she came back, a scent I'd never bought her. The way her eyes would dart away when I asked about her day, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Fear? I tried to approach it logically. Maybe it was a hobby. Night photography, bird watching in the dark. I knew how ridiculous it sounded even as I thought it. The cemetery was a good 20-minute drive from our house. It wasn't a place you'd casually pop over to at midnight for a hobby, especially not a woman who complained about the slightest chill in the air and insisted on wearing 3 layers even in mild weather. The guilt was the worst part, the gnawing feeling that I was becoming someone I despised, the detective, the suspicious husband. I'd always prided myself on trust, on being the kind of guy who saw the good in people, who gave the benefit of the doubt. And here I was, digging through my wife's digital footprint like a common thief.
But the image of those GPS markers clustering around that desolate place, it wouldn't leave me. It was a question mark etched onto my brain. I remember one Tuesday night, we were watching some mindless TV show, something about bakers attempting impossible cakes. Sarah was restless. She kept checking her phone. "Going to grab a snack," she said, her voice a little too casual. She got up and headed towards the kitchen. I waited a beat, then followed. The back door was slightly ajar. Her car was gone. Not a word. Just gone. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a snack run. This was the cemetery. I ran to her dresser, grabbed her spare keys, and jumped into my truck. I didn't even think about what I was doing. It was pure, primal instinct. Drive. Find out. The 20 minutes felt like an eternity. The darkness of the highway was punctuated by the glare of oncoming headlights, each one a potential distraction, a reminder of the real world I was temporarily leaving behind. I pulled up to the cemetery gates, the wrought iron looming like skeletal fingers against the inky sky. The place was always eerie, even in daylight. At night, it was something else entirely. A silent, sprawling city of the dead. I killed my headlights and crept forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. I scanned the rows of headstones, the moonlight casting long, distorted shadows. And then, I saw it. A single car, parked a little ways down a gravel path, almost hidden by a stand of old oak trees. Sarah's car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the steering wheel steady. I killed the engine, the sudden silence deafening. I could see a faint light emanating from inside her car. A soft, warm glow. And then, a silhouette. Someone was inside. Sarah. But not alone. I sat there, frozen, for what felt like hours. The cold seeped into the truck, into my bones. I watched as the silhouette shifted, as two figures became visible in the dim interior. They were close, very close. There was movement, subtle gestures I couldn't decipher in the dark, but the intimacy was palpable. The silence of the cemetery seemed to amplify the quiet sounds from her car. A muffled laugh, the rustle of fabric. My mind raced, desperately trying to find an innocent explanation. Were they planning a surprise for me? A romantic rendezvous in a cemetery? It was so absurd, so out of character for her that it barely registered as a possibility. The truth, the ugly, devastating truth, was beginning to dawn on me, hitting me with the force of physical blow. I saw Sarah lean in. I saw the other figure lean in. And then, in the faint moonlight filtering through the trees, I saw it. A kiss. A long, lingering kiss. It wasn't a peck. It wasn't a friendly gesture. It was a kiss of desire, of passion, of a connection that ripped through me like a hot poker. My breath hitched. The air in the truck felt thick, unbreathable. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All I could do was watch. This horrific tableau unfolding before me. My wife, in her car, in a cemetery, kissing someone else. Every single night. The guilt I'd felt before was nothing compared to this. This was a tidal wave of shame and betrayal. Shame for not knowing, for not seeing, for being so utterly blind. Betrayal, because the woman I had loved, the woman I had built my life with, was living a secret life I couldn't even begin to comprehend. I watched as the figures in the car continued their embrace. I saw Sarah's hand reach out, her fingers tracing the outline of the other person's face. My wife, my Sarah. And in that moment, the world as I knew it, shattered into a million irreparable pieces. I was staring into the abyss, and the abyss was staring back, and it was wearing my wife's face. I stayed there, hidden in the shadows, until the first hint of dawn began to paint the sky, a cruel mockery of the darkness that had consumed me. I didn't know what to do, what to say. What was there to say? The silence in my truck was a deafening roar. The image of that kiss was burned into my retinas, and the weight of it, the sheer crushing weight of it, was more than I could bear. I drove home just as the first rays of sun were hitting the suburban rooftops. The illusion of normalcy. A cruel joke.
Sarah was asleep in our bed, her face peaceful, innocent. And I felt like a stranger in my own home, a ghost haunting the wreckage of my own life. The next few days were a blur of forced smiles and empty conversations. I couldn't look her in the eye. Every touch, every shared meal felt like a lie. I was a ticking time bomb, and I didn't know when I was going to explode. I replayed the scene in the cemetery 1,000 times, dissecting every detail, every nuance, searching for clues I might have missed, for anything that made sense of this insane reality. Who was it? Why the cemetery? Why every night? The questions gnawed at me, driving me to the brink of madness. I considered confronting her, of course. The words were on the tip of my tongue, a venomous cocktail of accusation and pain. But every time I opened my mouth, I froze. What if I was wrong? What if there was an explanation, however far-fetched? I was still Mark, the guy who gave people the benefit of the doubt. But now, that doubt was a gaping wound. One evening, I found myself back on her old phone. I'd been trying to piece together her recent contacts, looking for any unusual names, any numbers I didn't recognize. Nothing. It was like she'd been meticulously erasing any trace. But then, I stumbled upon something else. A hidden app, password protected. My curiosity, or maybe my desperation, got the better of me. I tried a few common passwords, combinations of our anniversary, our pet's name. Nothing. Then, on a whim, I typed in the name of the cemetery, Willow Creek. Bingo. The app opened, and my blood turned to ice. It wasn't a messaging app. It wasn't social media. It was a dating app. A discreet burner account on one of those hookup sites. Her profile picture was a heavily filtered, unrecognizable version of herself, but the bio was undeniably Sarah. Vague, suggestive, and hinting at a desire for something forbidden. And then, the messages. Hundreds of them. Conversations, not just with one person, but with several. Dates, meetings. And then, I saw it. A recurring conversation, the one that made my stomach clench with a familiar dread. The one that discussed late-night rendezvous, the secrecy, the thrill of it all. And the recipient of those messages? The name was one I vaguely recognized from Sarah's periphery, a friend of a friend, someone I'd met at a barbecue maybe once or twice, someone who lived across town, someone who was married. I scrolled further, my hands slick with sweat. I saw pictures exchanged, intimate pictures, pictures that made me feel sick to my stomach, pictures that confirmed my deepest fears. And then I found the name of the person she was seeing regularly, the person she met at the cemetery every night. It was him, the married guy. And as I read through their recent messages, the full, devastating horror of it all crashed down on me. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning something bigger, something that involved me. And it was happening tonight. The messages were urgent, secretive, full of coded language I was only just beginning to decipher. And the timestamp on the last message sent from Sarah? 5 minutes from now. The message simply read, "He's about to find out everything. Be ready." My heart pounded in my ears. Find out everything? What was she talking about? What was about to happen? And who was he? Was it me? Was she about to confess? Or was this some kind of elaborate trap? I looked up from the phone, my gaze falling on Sarah, who was humming softly as she prepared dinner in the kitchen, the picture of domestic bliss. The contrast was jarring, sickening. I felt a cold dread wash over me, a premonition of something terrible about to unfold. The phone in my hand felt like a ticking time bomb, and the clock was ticking down to 0. I had to know. I had to know what she was planning. What was she about to reveal? And who was she meeting in that cemetery? The answer, I suspected, was going to shatter what little remained of my life. And the dread, the raw, unadulterated dread, was almost unbearable. The humming stopped abruptly. Sarah cleared her throat, a small, almost imperceptible sound, but to me, in the charged silence of the house, it was a gunshot. I jolted, my eyes snapping from the glowing screen of her old phone to the kitchen doorway. She was standing there, one hand resting on the granite countertop, the other holding a spatula, her expression unreadable. A faint, almost imperceptible flicker in her eyes. Was it guilt? Apprehension? Or was it just my own paranoia projecting onto her? The message on the phone felt like a physical weight in my hand, a poisonous secret I now held. He's about to find out everything. Be ready. Who was he? Was it me? Was she about to confess her betrayal, her double life to my face? Or was this some twisted game, some elaborate setup designed to destroy me? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, colder than any grave at Willow Creek. I forced my hand to relax its death grip on the phone, shoving it into my pocket as if it were radioactive. My own voice, when it finally emerged, sounded alien, a hoarse whisper I barely recognized. "Dinner smells good, honey." It was a pathetic attempt at normalcy, a flimsy shield against the storm that was brewing within me. She gave a small, almost polite nod, turning back to the stove. "Just some pasta. Thought we'd keep it simple tonight." Simple. The word landed like a brick. Nothing about this was simple anymore. Every shared meal, every casual conversation was now laced with the poison of her deceit, the unspoken knowledge that she was living a secret life I had stumbled into. I walked into the dining room, the polished wood of the table reflecting the dim overhead light. The place settings were laid out with her usual meticulous care. 2 plates, 2 sets of silverware, 2 wine glasses.
It was the picture of domestic tranquility, a stark contrast to the chaos raging inside me. I sat down, my hands resting on the table, my fingers drumming a silent, frantic rhythm against the wood. I watched her through the doorway, her movements economical and precise as she plated the pasta. She didn't look at me. She never looked at me anymore, not really. Her gaze always seemed to be somewhere else, lost in some distant private landscape I couldn't access. When she brought the plates to the table, she finally met my eyes, and for a fleeting second, I saw it. Not the casual, affectionate glance I was used to, but something raw, something that looked like terror. Her lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but no sound came out. Then, just as quickly, the mask was back in place. A serene smile, a gesture of domestic contentment. "Eat up," she said, her voice smooth and even. I picked up my fork, the weight of it feeling unnatural in my hand. The pasta, usually a comfort, tasted like ash in my mouth. Each bite was an effort, a physical manifestation of the effort it was taking to maintain this facade. I kept glancing at her, searching her face for any clue, any hint of what was to come. Her composure was unnerving. She ate with an appetite, chatted about her day at work, a mundane story about a difficult client and a successful negotiation, all the while maintaining that practiced smile. It was as if she were an actress playing the role of Sarah, the loving wife, with chilling perfection. The message kept replaying in my head. He's about to find out everything. Be ready. Who was he? If it wasn't me, then who was this other man she was involved with, the one it was about to find out everything? Was it the married man from the dating app? Was she planning to confess to him? Or was it someone else entirely? The uncertainty was a gnawing beast, tearing at my insides. I found myself subtly checking my phone every few minutes, a reflex born of the frantic urgency of her last message. I didn't dare pull out the old iPhone again, not with her sitting right there. But the anticipation was building, a palpable tension that seemed to hum in the air between us. Every creak of the house, every passing car outside made me jump. Around halfway through our meal, Sarah put her fork down.
She took a slow sip of her wine, her gaze fixed on the swirling liquid. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. I held my breath, waiting. This was it, I thought. This was the moment. "Mark," she began, her voice softer now, stripped of its earlier pretense. She still wasn't looking at me. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart leaped into my throat, my hands trembled. This was it. The confession. The truth. I braced myself, ready to absorb the blow, to confront the wreckage of my life. "I'm listening, Sarah," I managed, my voice tight. She finally looked up, her eyes wide, her pupils dilated. The fear I'd seen earlier was back, amplified.
It wasn't the fear of being caught. It was something else. Something that looked like genuine panic. It's about us," she stammered, her voice cracking. "About what we've been going through." I waited. The wheels of the train were grinding to a halt. The journey into darkness was about to begin. I know things haven't been easy," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've been so disconnected lately, and I've been trying to find a way back to us, to find a spark again." A spark? I almost choked on my pasta. A spark? Was she seriously trying to tell me this was about us? About reigniting our marriage? The sheer absurdity of it almost made me laugh, a hysterical, broken sound. "A spark, Sarah?" I repeated, the sarcasm dripping from my words. "Is that what you call sneaking off to a cemetery every night? Is that what you call meeting someone else? Is that your idea of finding a spark?" Her face drained of color. The carefully constructed composure crumbled, revealing the raw fear beneath. She flinched as if I'd struck her. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, her voice trembling. My own anger, long simmering beneath the surface, erupted. The carefully constructed mask of the betrayed husband cracked, revealing the raw, bleeding wound of my pain. "Don't play dumb with me, Sarah. I know. I pulled the old iPhone from my pocket, its screen still glowing with the evidence. I saw the GPS history. I saw the dating app. I saw the messages, the pictures, and I saw you last night in your car with him. Her breath hitched. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me, wide with a terror I'd never seen. The denial was gone, replaced by a stark, naked fear. But it wasn't the fear of being caught in an affair. It was something different. You saw," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "Yes, I saw," I practically shouted, the sound echoing in the dining room. "I saw everything. Who is he, Sarah? Who is the man you're meeting in a cemetery every single night? And what the hell is this message?" I shoved the phone across the table, the screen with her last frantic message facing her. "He's about to find out everything. Be ready." She stared at the phone, her hand shaking as she reached for it. Her fingers traced the words, a look of dawning horror on her face. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, no." "No what, Sarah?" I demanded, leaning forward, my own fear and rage churning. "No, you're not going to tell me? No, you're not going to explain this? Or no, this isn't what I think it is?" She looked up at me, her eyes brimming with tears. But it wasn't just sadness or regret I saw. There was a desperate plea, a desperate urgency. "Mark, it's not what you think. It's not an affair. Not like you imagine." I scoffed. "Oh, really? So meeting a married man in a cemetery every night, exchanging intimate photos, planning clandestine meetings, that's not an affair. What is it then, Sarah?" "Some kind of ghost hunting club?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It's for him. For us. For our future." "Our future?" My voice was rising again. "What future are we talking about? The one where you're screwing some other guy in the dark? Stop it! she cried, her voice raw and desperate. "You don't understand. The messages, they're not from him. They're from someone else. Someone who's been manipulating us. Someone who's been using me." My mind reeled. Manipulating? Using her? This was a new twist, a desperate attempt to deflect, to escape the reality of her betrayal. But there was something in her eyes, a genuine terror, that made me pause, just for a second. "Who, Sarah? Who's been manipulating us?" I asked, my voice laced with skepticism. She picked up the phone, her hands still shaking. She scrolled through the messages, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. "This person," she whispered, pointing to a name on the screen. A name I didn't recognize. A burner number. "They've been feeding me information, telling me to meet him, telling me about you." My blood ran cold. "About me?" "They've been watching us, Mark," she continued, her voice trembling. "They knew about my old phone. They knew about the dating app. They knew I was seeing him, and they've been orchestrating it, telling me to get closer to him, to get these pictures for some reason. And they said tonight was the night he would finally find out, and that I needed to be ready." I stared at her, completely bewildered. This was a narrative I hadn't even begun to consider. The rage was still there, a burning ember, but it was now mixed with a profound sense of confusion. Was she telling the truth? Was this a desperate ploy, or was there a sliver of reality in her words? "Who is this person, Sarah?" I demanded again, my voice quieter now, more controlled, but no less intense. "And why? Why are they doing this?" She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I don't know, Mark. I swear to God, I don't know. They communicate through this burner app. They give me instructions, and I've been too scared to disobey. They said if I didn't do what they said, they would expose everything, not just the affair, but other things. Things I've done. Other things." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken secrets. My confusion deepened, a tangled knot of suspicion and a flicker of something else. Something that felt like the edge of a precipice. Suddenly, the front doorbell rang. It wasn't a gentle chime. It was a sharp, insistent ring, echoing through the house like a klaxon. Sarah jumped, her face paling even further. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a fresh wave of terror. That's them," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. They said they'd come tonight to resolve things. I thought it meant you would find out."
I thought that was what they meant by "be ready." My head snapped towards the front door. The sound of the doorbell, so mundane, now felt like a death knell. My mind raced, a frantic scramble of possibilities. Was this the married man? Was this the manipulator Sarah was talking about? Or was it someone else entirely, someone I'd never even conceived of? I stood up slowly, my body tensing. The anger, the betrayal, the confusion, it all coalesced into a single primal instinct. Protect myself. Find out what the hell was going on. I glanced at Sarah, her face a mask of pure panic. She looked utterly broken, utterly terrified. "Stay here," I said, my voice low and firm. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to face whatever or whoever was on the other side of that door. The message, the dating app, the cemetery meetings, the burner phone, the cryptic warnings, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle that were about to violently snap into place, and I had a sickening feeling that the picture they would form would be far more horrifying than I could ever have imagined. As I walked towards the front door, each step felt heavier than the last. The moonlight, which had seemed so mocking earlier, now felt like a spotlight, illuminating my path towards an unknown and terrifying encounter. The silence in the house was broken only by the frantic pounding of my own heart, a drumbeat of dread and a desperate, gnawing curiosity. I reached for the doorknob, my hand cold and clammy. Whatever was out there, whatever waited on the other side, it was the culmination of everything, the secret life, the lies, the terror. And as my fingers tightened around the cool metal, I knew with a chilling certainty that my life was about to irrevocably change. The question wasn't just who was at the door, but what they wanted and what they were willing to do to get it. And terrifying realization dawned that Sarah's fear wasn't just about her own secrets anymore. It was about mine, too. The doorknob turned with a click that felt deafeningly loud. I pulled the door open, stepping out onto the porch, the crisp night air a sudden shock against my skin. The porch light cast long, distorted shadows, making the familiar suburban street look alien and menacing. And there, standing on my sidewalk, silhouetted against the glow of a distant streetlight, was a figure. Not a figure I recognized, not the casual silhouette of a neighbor or a friend. This was something else. Taller than average, clad in dark, nondescript clothing, their face obscured by the shadows of a baseball cap pulled low. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, a silent, unnerving presence. Sarah's breath hitched behind me. I could feel her presence, a tangible wave of fear radiating from her, a stark contrast to the cold, coiled tension in my own body. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice tight, deliberately projecting an outward calm I didn't feel.
The figure slowly raised a hand. In it, glinting dully in the dim light, was what looked like a small, high-powered flashlight. They clicked it on, and the beam, impossibly bright, pierced the darkness, not pointing at my face, but sweeping across the front of my house. My eyes followed its path, and a wave of nausea washed over me. The beam was highlighting something I hadn't noticed. Something glinting on the side of the garage. A small, reflective sticker. A tiny, almost imperceptible GPS tracker. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't about Sarah's affair. This wasn't about some vengeful husband or a jilted lover. This was bigger, more organized, more terrifying. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. They've been watching us, Mark. They knew about my old phone. They knew about the dating app. They knew I was seeing him, and they've been orchestrating it. The figure lowered the flashlight. Then, in a voice that was strangely flat, devoid of any discernible emotion, they spoke. It's time, Mark. She made her choice. Now, you have to make yours. Choice? What choice? My voice was a raw rasp. My gaze flickered back to Sarah, who was now clinging to the doorframe, her knuckles white. Her terror was palpable, and for the first time, I understood it wasn't just about her secrets. It was about a threat that was now very real, very immediate, and very much aimed at us. The choice between what you know and what you can live with, the figure replied. The voice was chillingly calm, like a surgeon discussing a routine procedure. We've been observing you both, the indiscretions, the lies. They are unfortunate, but they are also weaknesses, and weaknesses attract attention. Who are you people? I demanded, taking a step forward, my fists clenching. The primal urge to protect Sarah, to protect myself, was overwhelming. This shadowy figure, this implied organization, was a new level of threat, a terrifying unknown. Think of us as custodians, the figure said, a hint of something that might have been amusement in their tone. We clean up messes, especially messes that have the potential to destabilize things. And your little dramas, Mark, they're starting to bleed. The tracker on your car, for example. Someone clearly wants to know where you go. And Sarah's little side project, that was a beacon. My mind spun. A tracker on my car? I'd assumed the GPS history on her old phone was the extent of it. But this was a whole other level of surveillance. They knew everything. So, you orchestrated it? I accused, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. The dating app, the cemetery meetings, you set it all up? Not entirely, the figure said. We simply nudged, provided opportunities, observed how people reacted under pressure. Sarah's anxieties about your relationship, her desire for something more, we amplified that. Your own insecurities, your desire for certainty, we used that too. The burner messages were simply to create a narrative, to ensure you were on a collision course. And tonight, the collision was meant to happen. Why? Sarah whimpered from the doorway. Why would you do this to us? Because the information you possess, individually and collectively, is volatile, the figure stated. And if it were to fall into the wrong hands, or become public knowledge through your unrefined methods of communication,
it could have consequences. We prefer controlled scenarios. What information? I pressed, my gaze locked on the unmoving figure. What do we have that's so important? That, the figure paused, a deliberate silence that felt heavy with implication, is where your choice comes in, Mark. Sarah has been gathering intel for us under duress. She's provided us with valuable insights into certain sensitive networks you've been indirectly involved with. Information about unsavory transactions, connections that could be highly embarrassing, highly damaging to certain powerful individuals. My gut clenched. Unsavory transactions, damaging connections. I'd always felt like I was playing in the shallow end of the business world, but I'd made enough money to attract attention, enough that certain people might want to keep tabs on my operations, on my associations. Had Sarah, in her desperation to find something, stumbled into something far more dangerous than a simple affair? And what happens now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The chilling reality of our situation was sinking in. We weren't just a couple fighting through marital problems. We were caught in something orchestrated, something dangerous, something that involved powerful people and hidden information. Now, the figure continued, their voice dropping slightly, becoming more urgent. You have two paths. One, you can embrace the narrative we've created. Sarah's transgression, your discovery of it, the public humiliation. It's messy, but it distracts. It allows us to contain the fallout from what Sarah has already revealed and what she could reveal. You walk away, you deal with the divorce, the alimony, the public shame. And we disappear. The sensitive information remains secured. Your lives, though damaged, continue in their own way. Sarah gasped, a choked sob escaping her lips. Divorce, humiliation. It was a devastating prospect, but at least it was understandable. And the other path? I asked, dread coiling in my stomach. The figure took a slow step forward, and for the first time, I could make out the glint of their eyes beneath the brim of the cap. They were cold, assessing. The other path, they said, their voice a low growl, is that you refuse to play the game. You try to expose us. You try to expose Sarah's affair and whatever else you think you've uncovered. You try to fight back. And in that scenario, well, information is power, Mark, and some information is too dangerous to ever see the light of day.
The consequences, they would be far more severe, not just for Sarah, but for you, for everyone you care about. The implied threat hung in the air, a suffocating blanket. This wasn't just about blackmail or a cover-up. This was about control, about erasing loose ends. And Sarah, in her search for a spark, had become a very dangerous loose end. You mean, you'll kill us? I asked, the words tasting like bile. The figure didn't answer directly. They simply tilted their head, a subtle gesture that conveyed everything. We prefer to avoid unpleasantness, but sometimes it is necessary for the greater good, for stability, for the preservation of important structures. My mind raced. I thought of our house, our life, the comfortable suburban existence I'd built. It all felt so fragile now, so vulnerable. The anger I'd felt towards Sarah, the betrayal, the rage, it all seemed so petty, so insignificant in the face of this new existential threat. She had been manipulated, terrified, and in her fear, she had become a pawn in a game far beyond her understanding. And now, I was the next pawn. So what? You want me to just accept it? I asked, my voice raw. Let you control our lives? Let you dictate our narrative? You have a choice, Mark, the figure repeated, their tone unwavering. You can let the manufactured narrative of infidelity play out, and we ensure your silence and Sarah's cooperation. Or you can resist and face the consequences of that resistance. The decision is yours, but it needs to be made tonight. We've already seen enough. The figure turned, not waiting for my response. They began to walk away,
melting back into the shadows of the street, their form disappearing as if they were a figment of my fear. But the tracker on the garage, the cold words, the chilling implications, they were all too real. I stood on the porch, the cold night air seeping into my bones. The front door creaked open behind me, and Sarah stepped out, her face pale, her eyes wide and pleading. She looked at me, her silence deafening. The message on the phone, "He's about to find out everything, be ready," had been true in a way I could never have imagined. It wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about a betrayal of a different kind, a betrayal of our very reality, orchestrated by unseen forces. I looked at her, and for a moment, the anger and resentment that had consumed me for weeks seemed to dissipate, replaced by a profound, sickening pity. She was a victim, a terrified, manipulated victim, just like me. The affair, the lies, the dating app, it had all been a symptom, not the disease. The disease was something far more insidious, something that had infiltrated our lives, turning our personal drama into a tool for their own inscrutable purposes. My gaze drifted to the small glinting tracker on the garage. It was a symbol of our invasion, of our loss of control. I could pull it off. I could try to fight, to expose these custodians.
But the threat was too real, the stakes too high. The lives of people I cared about, the very fabric of my existence, hung in the balance. What do we do, Mark?" Sarah whispered, her voice a fragile thread. I closed my eyes, taking a deep, shaky breath. The decision was unbearable. The weight of it pressed down on me, crushing me. There was no easy answer, no happy ending, only survival. And survival in this new reality meant playing their game. It meant accepting the manufactured narrative. It meant letting them control the story. "We play along, Sarah," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. The words felt like shards of glass in my throat. But the divorce, the shame, it's the price," I said, turning to face her, my gaze meeting hers. There was no anger left, only a vast, empty ache. "It's the price for not losing everything, for not letting them win completely. They want us to crumble, to destroy ourselves. We'll give them the crumbling, but we'll survive it. We have to." I looked out at the dark street, the shadows where the figure had stood. The night was silent now, but it felt alive with unspoken threats. The comfortable illusion of my life had been shattered, replaced by a harsh, unforgiving truth. We were pawns, and our personal drama had been exploited. The only way out was through the wreckage they'd created, to pick up the pieces and build something new, something that could withstand the shadows. It was a devastating victory, a hollow survival. I reached out, not with anger or accusation, but with a weary resignation, and took Sarah's hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling, but she held on tightly. We stood there for a long moment, two shattered people on a porch, facing a future dictated by unseen forces, bound together not by love or trust, but by the shared trauma of being caught in a game they never asked to play. The last breath I took was a shaky exhale, a silent acknowledgement that the storm had passed, but the landscape it left behind was unrecognizable.